Yeah, woo, live stream. Hey, hey everyone, welcome to this live stream, this drawing session. For today's drawing session, let's try to focus on removing some of our expectations and just watching the drawings happen on the page. Here, I'm going to be working on one of my Coyotes pieces. So if you watch my video on my recent project that I've started, this project is based around the theme of friendship, which is kind of a cheesy theme, but it's a theme that I really care about and something I think about a lot. So I'm like drawing these cute little characters, and I'll be working on this piece. So join me here. Let's draw together. If you're interested in some drawing exercises, if you're a beginner artist and you don't know what to draw, check out my 54 free drawing exercises that will be linked below. But make sure that you actually have fun with it, right? Don't force yourself to do drawing exercises that you do not care about. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and let's draw together. Because what else is there to do on a Sunday? Gotta make sure that everything's working here in a second, and feel free to let me know what you're working on if you are drawing along with me. Let me just put this down, volume down. Is this actually live? Am I just talking to myself? It's very possible that I'm just talking to myself. So let's see here. Double checking that I'm actually live. Perfect. We are live. Oh, playing other people's content while I'm trying to just put this. I'm still figuring out the streaming thing out. So, give me here. Okay, there we go. I think we're good to go. I assume I don't have to play my own stream while I'm streaming to get the chat going. That is up for debate, but that should be working. There we go. Perfectly. So I'm going to be cleaning up some of these inks here for a little bit. I'm just going to go in here. A lot of these inks are quite small, so I do my drawings on these very small pieces of paper, which you've probably seen if you've seen my videos. So when I do these final pieces, when I do the colors, I tend to go in a little bit just to clean up a little bit, where the lines could be a little bit prettier that way. Where if I do a print on a larger size, it actually makes sense. Like it doesn't look all that janky. Sometimes a bit of jank is good, but sometimes you want it to look a little bit cleaner, so that's what we're going to be doing here. I have these brushes that I like working with. These are just brushes that I've kind of adjusted slightly, like they are a lot of the standard brushes, but one thing that I think is useful if you are working digitally is just learning how to make adjustments to the brushes so that they suit your needs, especially if you work at different canvas sizes that are normal. You know, certain brushes are optimized for a certain canvas size, so if you work at like a larger DPI, some of those brushes don't scale properly unless you make adjustments to them in the settings. It's something that I've found very useful to learn, and a lot of times it's just like playing around with the brush sizes. It's really not about having it figured out intellectually. It's more just like playing around, testing things and seeing what works. So I'm just going to go in here, clean up a little bit. I know this looks kind of boring. You know, it's not going to look like much on the screen because I'm just making small adjustments. But then once I'm done this, I'm going to load this into a new file and then start doing colors. And I've struggled quite a bit with colors throughout my creative journey. It's one of the biggest challenges I've got faced, because I do like painterly colors, but just trying to paint has never really worked well for me. It's never felt right. And that might just, you know, some people would say that that's just a skill issue, which I understand that sentiment. I understand why some people see it that way. But I do think that there has to be a balance between what comes naturally versus how much you push. So I could probably spend many years learning how to do that and try to force myself to do it. But the probability that I actually learn that way of working without burning out seems very low to me. One thing that I found very interesting is watching all these art YouTubers talk about like their schedules and all the ways that they study, and how many of the people who have these extreme study schedules that don't really suit them in the way that they would actually work, like they're kind of just like brute forcing their way through, how many of those artists tend to just burn out. I found that to be really, really interesting. It's kind of you know, there has to be some sort of balance between like wanting to grow and wanting to learn, and also like enjoying the practice, especially if you do this as a hobby. I understand that like people who do this professionally, they can force themselves to just learn. That makes sense to me to a certain degree, because you know there's the financial pressure. But if you're doing this as a hobby, you kind of have to find a love in it. Hello, Jessa. How are you doing? Are we drawing today? Are we just hanging out? I'm just jabbering about finding a sustainable way to grow. And I think that's a big part of what I focus on here, is just how do you improve and fall in love with your art practice and then improve second. I do think that the art education space focuses so heavily on improvement, which makes sense. Like if you're teaching people, like the students improving their skills is obviously a good sign. But sometimes I feel like that gets outweighed, and like it becomes the only focus when we don't talk enough about how to actually enjoy the practice and actually have fun with it. Drawing, yeah, awesome. It's the way to do it. I feel like the weekend's perfect for, like, especially for a lot of hobbyists. It's usually the time where you have the most amount of energy, especially in the morning, afternoon time. I know evenings can sometimes be a bit tricky. What are you working on today? Are you working on anything specific? Just sketching, doodling? I'm just cleaning up this piece right now, and then I'm gonna jump into colors. I like some of these paper textures that come through in the scan, but I also don't want it to be too extreme, because ultimately I'll also be adding textures myself at the end. So finding that balance is important. But so I don't know if you guys can tell, it's kind of hard to see on the screen because it's very small, but I'm making these tiny adjustments. Hello there. 22 radical shoes. Hopefully drawing in a bit. Just need to get set up. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, take your time. I know that not everyone has like a designated spot for drawing, so yeah, set up. Taking some time to set up. Maybe get a cup of tea. It's a good way to get started. That's actually one of the tricks that I used for a while, where I would set up my desk the night before if I knew I wanted to draw the next day, because that helped me like get over the procrastination of needing to set up. But I know that it's, you know, not everyone has that luxury, and not everyone has that problem either. You know, if you've been waiting all week to draw, it doesn't take as much setting up and thinking ahead. But that is like the biggest challenge, right? It's just learning how to get yourself to the drawing table. I do think that that's maybe the biggest issue. And it's like a multi-layered issue, right? Like there's no like one singular solution that works for all of it. But ultimately, if you find a way to fall in love with it, I think that is a great way. But I don't know, I think it becomes more and more complicated the more distractions that are available to us. I think that's actually one of the big upsides of art streamers. Like if you watch people on YouTube who stream art, it's an inviting way to like draw along with other people, and that can help you like get over some of the procrastination if you have that issue. I found that on days where I don't have as much motivation, I can just put it on a stream, and then that will get me into the drawing mood. I've been into candles lately, but I also love animals and nature, so I'm trying to figure out how to mesh them. I'm sure you'll figure it out. That sounds exciting. Candles and animals. Oh, there's so much you can like explore there. Have fun with it. That feels like a great combination of things to explore. It is fun when you have these intersecting concepts that like there's probably no obvious solution to that, right? Like some of the initial ideas might seem a bit too cliche, but then once you explore the ideas, you might find something very, very interesting. Or you might discover that your interest in it will wane and change and, you know, adjust. I think that's such a huge part of what makes drawing fun, is like that adventure of discovery. I'm always surprised by like the things that end up in the art. There's so many times where I'll make a piece and only in hindsight will I realize like, oh, you know what? I was thinking about this idea during the day I sketched that piece, and then only in hindsight did I realize that I actually ended up on the page. It's actually what makes art so beautiful as well. Ooh, a phoenix coming out of a candle smoke yesterday. Oh, I love that. That's exciting. That must have been fun. That must have been a great way to like discover parts of yourself and explore. Good on you for like actually thinking about your practice that way. I do find it frustrating how often people talk about art as if it's separate from other parts of life, when it's just so interconnected. Like I think the whole point and the whole value of it is really that it's interconnected and you can't separate the two. But also makes it more complicated, right? Like if you're going through other challenges in life, so some of those things will show up in the practice, and that can be challenging. You know, it's not exactly escapism, at least not in my experience. Although I guess for some people they might experience it that way, but for most people I talk to, or most students I talk to, they seem to have an intersecting, like their interests intersect within their art practice, and it's hard to separate the two. And you know, all the challenges of personal growth and developing art habit and your mentality around things, your expectations on yourself, like all those things, you know, they intersect, and that's challenging but also valuable. And I think I used to want art to be like this pure escape, but I now that I'm older, I think I appreciate the fact that it's complex, and I think that's great. Like I think that is where the value really is. It's a big part of why I like teaching beginner artists, is because you can have someone who's a beginner discover things about themselves without actually needing to get good at drawing, or like get good at drawing, you know, whatever that means. Usually that means technical skill, but I would say a beginner artist who transforms themselves in their practice, they gain so much more from their practice than someone who just gets good at the skill and never really pushes themselves to discover parts of themselves. Although I do have skepticism that you can actually get good at drawing without discovering parts of yourself. Like I do think that is almost a necessity, but I do think that the conversations around art sometimes just focus so heavily on the technical that we forget that this thing is supposed to be creative. It's supposed to be an expression of who you are, but that's hard to teach. So it's so much easier to just be like, hey, do these exercises and eventually we'll figure out what it is that you want to do. And I don't think that's a given. I think the other way around, well, doing them both in tandem is probably a better strategy. I find to get started I have to use pen only, or if I use pencil I have to put a timer for 5 minutes for the rough sketch and then refine with pen. Yes, using timers, I love that. I use timers all the time. Like I don't think I could function and be productive without my timers, and that might seem like an exaggeration, but I genuinely, I just don't get stuff done unless I put that kind of focus on it. So I fully relate to how you're approaching it. I think it's one of the few things you can actually spend money on and have a huge impact on your practice. I think that's, and you kind of have to like play around, figure out what works well for you. But I think the human brain just likes confined time blocks. I think it just works well, especially if you're someone who's a busy person. Like if it's hard for you to sit down and draw for many hours per week, it's great if you can just sit down and put a timer on for 20 minutes and just stop thinking about doing the laundry and all these other things that you have to get done, and just focus on the practice for those 20 minutes. I think that could be a great way to increase the amount of focus drawing you get in. I do think that like even, this is true for people who have a lot of hours as well, but I do think the less hours you have, the more the focus matters. Because then, if you only have 20 minutes per week to draw, if you're distracted those 20 minutes, it's very hard to make progress. But you can do quite a bit of drawing in 20 minutes if you're focused. You can feel quite fulfilled within that 20 minutes, at least creatively. And that's pretty good tips. I use a stove timer so I can see how much time is left. You know what? That is a good idea, not being able to see the timer. I used to use an iPod, like an old iPod back in the day, and I would turn on the timer and flip it over so I couldn't see the time. So that, yes, not being able to see the time so you're not checking constantly. And there's this magical moment where you're once you're focused deeply on it, like once you set a timer and you start drawing, your perception of time changes. Like it's so much easier to focus in on the moment because you know that eventually it will end, right? You don't constantly have this loop of asking yourself, should I stop drawing now? Should I go do something else? If you know that you set aside 20 minutes, you can just stop asking that question entirely because you're like, well, once the timer is up, then I'll be done. And then I can start focusing on everything else. Like the rest of life can happen after that. But for these 20 minutes, I'm going to dedicate my mind to the drawing practice. I found that to be super helpful. It's one of the best productivity tips, I think. It's so good. I love it. I also have a kitchen timer, so 100% agree. Hello, Nadir Sa, One Doodle Island. Hello. Say hello to me. Yeah. Yeah, that is a good. Yeah, if you haven't used a timer before, try it out. I highly recommend it. I do think that's part of why drawing along with like YouTubers and stuff is also helpful, because it gives you a set amount of time that you're drawing in. But I do think that sinking into the moment and just focusing on your drawing session for a period of time is just a great way to go. I think it's also helpful for all other aspects of life as well. I use a timer for when I read, just so I can focus on the reading while I'm reading and then respond to messages and all this other stuff after. I think it also changes your perception of how long things take, right? So if you never have a timer running, you never know how long it takes you to like sit down and draw and actually focus. But if you are used to using a timer, you have a realistic sense of what you can get done in a certain period of time. And I think that can be very helpful. I think it's also useful if you're trying to take it seriously as well, you can also track it on paper so that day by day you can see how many minutes you're drawing. But I wouldn't put that pressure on it if you do this as a hobby and you just don't have a lot of time for it. Because ultimately, like, the tracking might make you feel a little bit guilty. So you have to be careful about that, right? So that I think that's one of the big challenges with all these like productivity things, is that like you have to ask yourself what things are actually helping you enjoy your practice and which things are just causing emotional turmoil. And that's a tricky balance to strike, and it's very, very personal. So it's something that I think every person has to grapple with within themselves individually. Which is actually one of the hardest parts about teaching, is that you know that not all advice works for all students, but you also can't like give all the disclaimers every single time. Like you kind of have to trust that people will figure out what works for them, like try it out. So keep that in mind as well if you are someone who consumes a lot of art education, that you should be careful about how much you consume and what you take in. Don't assume that other people's approach will work perfectly for you. Like I limit the amount of art videos I watch now, unless they're just fun videos. Like I try to be selective about the teachers I listen to, because I know if I consume too much, then I'll just feel stressed out and I'll start to judge my practice in a way that isn't helpful. Because I know I'm not the grind all the time and get good type artist. That doesn't really work for me. Which is why I like talk so much about the joy of drawing. Hello. Welcome. This is like my first time I joined a live stream. Wow. I'm honored to be your first. Also mark down in the calendar when I'm drawing so people don't bother me. That's a great way to do it. What brush are you using? I am using I've just adjusted some of these standard brushes on the Procreate. Like I'm not using any brushes that are like special, but I do recommend that if you are someone who works digitally, explore your brushes and like just play around with the settings, right? Like duplicate a brush, play around with the settings and see what works. I think that because the way you work will be very idiosyncratic to who you are. So playing around, figuring out what works for, especially for the canvas size as well, like figure out what brushes work well for you. That's something that you're just gonna have to play around and figure out. Obviously you can go and download a bunch of brush packs from other people, but I think that's fun once in a while, but that can also become like a way to procrastinate, right? Like I'm just testing brushes instead of actually drawing. All the brushes I use are basically just me. I've adjusted them, so nothing special though. So like you don't need to go buy a bunch of brushes. Looks like a brush pen. No, like what brush? He modified it. I joined lane. Modifying brushes to suit you is smart. Okay, thanks for telling me. Yeah, if you have Procreate, all the default brushes, there's so many different brushes that you can play around with and like figure out what works for you. You don't have to figure out how to play around with them, but I do think it's a fun way to like maybe adjust your process. But whatever works for you. don't assume that other people have good solutions, right? Like a lot of times, there's so many times I've done a lot of brushes by artists, and then I just realized that, oh, it's not the brush that I like, it's just the way they work that I like. And it's like, oh, well, I don't work the way they work, so there's like no point in me trying to draw like that. So, you know, that's why I hesitate to like sell people brush packs, because sometimes I'm like, yeah, like technically I think I have it listed somewhere, but I don't know. Something about brush packs feels a bit weird, but maybe I should just offer them for free. But figure out what works for you. Like play around with it. It really, I think so much of the fun is the discovery of it. So I think there's like value in just playing around. So here I'm gonna go in now and put in some colors. Let's see. Is this So the way I do my colors, and the way that works for me, is I just put in colors, and I almost use it like small watercolor brushes that I'm just like brushing in color here and there. And I'm still trying to figure out how to do this in a way that feels right for me. But I've done a couple pieces that I really, really like, that the colors I was like, okay, I want to do that again. But I want it to be a discovery every time, right? So I don't want the coloring process to be obvious. Because there have been coloring approaches that I've used before that felt a little bit like I was just going through the motions. I was just filling in colors, and I was like, okay, let's get getting done this, getting done that. And I didn't really enjoy it, to the point where I almost like considered outsourcing it. And then I realized, like, if that's where I'm at as an artist, it's not really a great sign if I'm like just bored with the process. So I've been trying to develop a process that is a little bit more freestyle, a little bit more improv, that feels fun for me. The problem with things being more improv is that you have less control, right? So it's like a catch-22. Hello, G. Will you color it? I think you should. Yes, I'm starting to color it. So I wanted to clean up the inks a little bit first, because these drawings are very, very small. So here, let me grab one. So these are done on like this 5x7 paper, very small drawings. So sometimes the lines are just a little bit off. So I like going in and cleaning it up before I like ink it. That way, if I do prints, I can do prints at larger sizes and it still looks good, you know. It's also quite satisfying just to like spend the time, take it a little bit slow, clean things up. It's a good feeling. But yet again, like I'm talking about wanting an improv style process for my colors that's obviously very specific to me, right? So not everyone needs to have that. Most artists, like a lot of artists, don't approach colors that way because that doesn't make sense for them. But for me, that is one way for me to make it more fun. For some people, it's, you know, the technical precision of like knowing what colors go where, and like that's what like satisfies their cravings for creativity, you know, like it's very, very specific to you. Which is the fun part, right? That is what I think is fun, is that you discover who you are through the practice. Like if you ask yourself right now, how do you have the most amount of fun possible with today's drawing session? Like what answers do you come up with? And I think if you ask yourself that question consistently, you will discover things about yourself. Like when you hang out with your friends, what type of hangout is the most fun for you? And can you bring that energy into your drawing practice? Or maybe you're trying to bring like a deeper sensitivity into your practice, and maybe fun isn't the main thing you're focused on. Maybe you're focused a little bit more on just getting in touch with like the deeper aspects of yourself, your inner child or whatever. So like setting up questions like that, I think, is a great way to discover and make progress in your practice that feels good. You know, when I say progress, I don't mean just technical ability. Although separating out technical ability with like who you are as an artist is also just, it's like dissecting things in a way that I don't think that, I think it's necessary to have a conversation about it, but at the same time, that's not the real lived experience. I think the real lived experience is that the more you discover about yourself, the better the art turns out, you know, in ways that might surprise you. At least that's been my experience, and that's been the experience of a lot of my students. So like separating it out completely is not, maybe not the most helpful. I think it's the only way to have a conversation about it though. But as you discover things about yourself and ask yourself these questions, stop looking for just technical improvements. You would look for creative depth and, you know, fulfillment. The improvement almost becomes secondary. But yet again, the hardest part about art is really just making stuff. It's just sitting down to make stuff. And if you find fulfillment in it, that's like the best way to make the entire thing more sustainable and more fun and exciting. I think most artists want to get to a place, if they ask themselves and like were deeply honest with themselves, they want to get to a place where they feel like their art is a reflection of who they are. But that sounds kind of woo-woo sometimes, so that's why it's sometimes, I guess some people don't want to talk about it as much. What are my main art inspirations in life? That's a really good question. I think nature would have to be number one. I spent a lot of my childhood just outdoors. So I think most of my art comes from that place, but it's hard to answer that question because I do feel like you bring all of yourself into the art practice. So obviously like some inspirations stand out and it's kind of obvious, especially if you like in terms of art style, right? So I like ink drawing, like these are inked pieces. I wanted to be a tattoo artist for a long time. So I looked at a lot of tattoo art. So stylistically, a lot of it looks like tattoo art. But like, I'm touching on the theme of like friendship. So saying that, so if I'm being fully honest, I think that's probably the deepest inspiration, but it's hard to like, you know, dissect that into just like, this is my inspiration. It's like, well, yeah, some of those things are a little bit more obvious, but I am also a little bit skeptical that I'm fully aware of all the aspects of myself, you know, like, I think it's good to write down your inspirations. And if any of you have done my inner artist course, I go through like art inspiration and ask yourself questions about like what music you're inspired by and stuff like that. I think it's great to introspect on it, but I think you also have to be skeptical of how much you actually know about yourself, because I think there's always more to discover, which is what makes it so much fun. Your experience is really good, way better than mine. Well, it's like I've been doing this for many, many years, right? Like I've been an art teacher for over 6 years. I've been an artist for over 12 years. So like the amount of thinking and writing that I do on this topic is kind of crazy. Like I probably spend almost the same amount of hours thinking, writing, and talking about art as I do making art. So obviously it's from experience. It's not like I have better explanations. It's literally my job to have explanations and help students. So, you know, don't judge yourself. It is also like, if you are someone who does art as a hobby, it's hard to spend all the time necessary to put words to all the feelings, right? Which is, you don't have to put words to all the feelings. You can just like explore it through the art practice. Lately, I've had more fun just making random shapes and seeing what they look like to me and using that gesture to inform what I will draw. Yes, beautiful. I love that so much. That is a huge part of intuitive, like I call this intuitive drawing, where you just make marks on the page and then just see what pops up. It's one of my favorite ways of working. I think it's so fun. It's just so much fun. There's so many times where I'll go to a cafe and I'll doodle and then see what comes out. Like exactly what you're describing, like 100% exactly what you're describing. And those drawings are so exciting just because I'm like shocked by what comes out of it. And that's when you realize that you don't have to control the art practice. Like you don't have to force it to be anything specific. You can actually just let go and just see what happens. I think that's, yeah, 100%. Like I agree with you. It's such a fun way to work. I'm happy you stumbled upon it, because it took me forever to figure that way of working. And it's hard to explain, right? It's hard to explain to people how to do that, because it is something that's felt. But yeah, intuitive drawing 100%. And I think it's a great antidote for perfectionism. Once you realize you don't have to control things, you can just let go of all of it and just be like, okay, well, if I don't need to be in control, I can just let go of all the perfectionism altogether, because it's like, well, I'm able to do great drawings without even really trying. That's what was surprising to me when I started approaching things that way, is that I'm making good drawings, like drawings that I actually enjoy looking at, without even putting effort necessarily. Like obviously I'm sitting down, spending the time, I'm being deliberate about making time for drawing, right? So it's not like completely accidental, but at the same time, it's not like I'm being gritty about it or forcing myself to put out good drawings. I'm just kind of like having fun with it. And that is such a revelation. It's something that, and it's something that I had to discover over and over again, because it's tempting. It's tempting to forget that drawing can be that easy, that drawing can actually feel that good. I think we fall into this trap of believing that we have to like, things have to be hard for them to be valuable, which there's some truth to that, right? There are aspects of life where you have to do things the hard way, you know? Well, even that, maybe even that's not true. But there are aspects of life that are just hard, and sometimes them being hard is what's valuable. But you can also like make it easier for yourself, right? So your art practice is never really going to be like easy. There's always going to be aspects of it that are kind of challenging. At least I think so. I think it's unrealistic to expect it to be all easy. But once you realize you don't have to force that, you don't have to force the challenges upon yourself, because those challenges, like the natural challenges, are enough. They're enough to like grapple with. Then you don't self-induce all this anxiety and stress around the practice that is just like completely unnecessary. Like you don't need to punish yourself in those ways. Which I think that's a big part of why like art schedule videos are doing really well online right now. Like I've seen a lot of YouTube videos where it's just like my art schedule, this and that, and those are doing really well. And I think a big part of that is just people think they have to do it like the hard way, or like they want certainty that they do certain steps to become good or get the approval that they want. But I don't think that's how that works. Obviously it's good if you're spending more time drawing. Like I would always encourage students to draw more, but that has to come from a place of like, I want to do this. I'm doing things that I actually enjoy. Forcing yourself to just do studies all the time, I don't think that's the most optimal way to do it. But if you are in the stage of life where that's the way you want to approach your practice, that's fine. But I hope that most of the people that are doing that aren't hobbyists, because if you do this as a hobby and you're just trying to be gritty and forcing yourself, I don't know how long you'll be able to draw for. Which is like one of the challenges of art education in general. It's just like how many students who are hobbyists are taking advice from people who are giving career-based advice to designers, right? I see this a lot where I'll find videos that have so many views that are like specifically targeting people who want to do art as a career. And I'm just wondering, like, are there actually this many people that want to do art as a career, or are there just so many hobbyists that think they need to approach art that way? Like when I go to the gym, I don't train like an athlete, right? Like my training regimen is based on like what actually makes sense for my lifestyle. I'm not going to spend 4 hours in the gym so that I don't train like an athlete. I think we're running into a problem now where a lot of students think that they need to practice as if they're like professionals. And it's like, well, that isn't your life circumstance. So like, you don't need that, you know? You're right. I get my brother to draw random shapes. That's a good way to do it. Get someone else to draw the shapes. That's a good way to do it. That's a fun exercise. I should probably try that sometime. I actually haven't tried. I've tried that once and it didn't really go well because I felt a lot of pressure, like having someone look at me while I'm drawing. I think that was a part of the problem, but that's a fun way to do it. I got your Beginners Toolkit. I'm having a blast so far with it. Awesome. Dome tunnel exercise. The dome and tunnel exercise, you made it that far. Good job. Like you made it that's impressive. And I'm super happy you're having fun with it. The tunnel and dome exercises are some of my favorites, but they're also quite challenging. Like the funny thing is that I recorded, I think it was the dome exercise or the tunnel one. It's one or the other that I had to record twice because the first time I did it, I messed it up so badly. I was like, okay, I just need to redo this whole thing because it does take a little bit of focus, but it is satisfying to see that illusion on the page. So I'm super happy that you got into that exercise. I hope that's fun for you, but always remember that like the fun comes first, right? So if any of that turns into like a lot of frustration, take breaks. I hope I've made that clear in the courses. I really want my students to enjoy the practice, right? You know what I do? You know the floorboards are wood and there are different shapes of wood. I sometimes use strips as a work of art. Absolutely. All the patterns in nature, 100%. Like, that is actually how I describe intuitive drawing, is that it's almost like you're watching the clouds and seeing what pops out in your mind. Like you'll see faces and figures and stuff in the clouds, even though there aren't it's not like the clouds are forming actual sculptures, but they seem that way. So, but my brother's a jerk and does random straight lines, then spiky. Hey, maybe the challenge is part of the fun, right? Like, I can imagine. Yeah, I understand why that's frustrating, but at the same time, it's a fun challenge. It's a fun way to push yourself. See, that to me, that is like a drawing exercise in a way that's actually fun. Like you turn the practice into play, and I think that's exactly kind of what I was getting at, is that you don't necessarily have to turn everything into like a gritty workout. Like things can just be playful and fun, and maybe challenging in the way that it is introspective, but in a way that's actually like sustainable and enjoyable. Because taking on challenges is satisfying. I'm not telling you like people not to like try to improve or whatever, but do it in a way that's actually enjoyable. It's the same way, like if you go dancing, you'll be like sweating and, breathing heavy because, just a lot of physical exercise, but you're not necessarily thinking about the fact that it's exercise. You're thinking about the music, you're thinking about how it's fun, you're thinking about how you're feeling. I think drawing can be that exact same way, where you're more focused on how you feel within your body, what is exciting you in this moment, Like right now, if you're drawing with me, just try to feel joy in your body. Like what would that feel like? How would your breathing change? Are you drawing something that you're actually enjoying in this moment, or you're like trying to force yourself to do something that maybe isn't what you actually want to do? And there aren't always clear-cut answers to these questions. Sometimes you do want to do a couple of drawing exercises because you're focused on improving, which is completely fair. But I do think that asking yourself those questions and making a habit of that can make all of art so much more fulfilling. I wish I had done a lot more of that when I was first starting out, or like, the first 6 years of my like art career, I really forced myself to do things that I didn't have to at all. I was listening to a lot of teachers tell me like, well, this is what you need to do. And then I would jump around between different teachers. So I'd never really made any progress. And no one ever like told me that, like, hey, focus on the joy of it. And I think part of that is because a lot of art teachers assume that that's a given. I think it's assumed that if you are drawing that you're always enjoying it. And it's like, that's not a given. I think there are a lot of creatives who they have a love for drawing, but they have like a complicated relationship with it. And I think like sitting with that relationship and asking yourself, how do I improve my relationship to my own practice is a good way to reestablish what got you to draw to begin with, I let my sibling struggle and draw. Yeah. So I do his drawing homework. Oh, your brother has drawing homework. Yeah, so must be fairly young then, I assume. I'm trying to remember what drawing homework I did. It's been so long since I was in school, I haven't even thought about the idea of homework, but I guess it's, of all the homework that you can be assigned, I feel like art homework should be a little bit more on the fun side. But then again, that's like, a bias from my perspective. I can imagine that there are a lot of people who would stress out about that. It is interesting to me that like learning how to enjoy things is a skill in itself. Like, I think I'm much better at enjoying things now than I ever was before. Like, I'm better at enjoying my art practice, and that is where I learned it specifically. Like, I primarily learned how to enjoy things through the art practice, but I can actually apply those mindsets to other things as well. Like, I can pick up a new hobby and apply the exact same mindsets that I have applied to my drawing practice, right? So earlier we were talking about using a timer. I know that using a timer is effective for my drawing practice, but it's also effective for everything else as well. Those strategies translate over, and it's like, it's because you are the same human. So a lot of the things that apply in one area of your life will apply to the others. That's not like one for one true in all aspects of life, but I do think that that's very much true in many aspects of life. Like if you know how to get yourself to the gym, which, you know, is challenging for most of us, then you probably also understand what you need to do to get yourself to the drawing table and vice versa. So like, if you develop your drawing habit and you fall in love with your drawing practice again, if you, in that learning, in that process, you learn about yourself and how to like talk to yourself internally, how to deal with the inner critic, all of those challenges, like as you deal with those challenges, you will learn so much about yourself. Which is ultimately my goal as a teacher. I'm not so concerned about my students becoming good at drawing necessarily, like at least not in the way that most students want to get good at drawing, you know. What I care about so much more is just like people discovering aspects of themselves and taking those lessons and applying to all aspects of life. You don't, you know. Like, I don't think it's a coincidence that I improved my art style a lot while I was also making new friends and discovering aspects of myself outside of the art practice. That's not a coincidence at all. Which is why that's also why that if you want to be a creative person, I think that you have to live life. Like, you can't just sit and draw all day long. I think that will lead to very generic art. Going to university. Oh wow. So he has an art course in university. That's amazing. One of my childhood art homework, the teacher told us to draw a whole airport. So we're on to do it. An airport. What? that sounds stressful. I don't know. Maybe actually imagining like a fun airport, that sounds like a fun exercise. But being like, if you chose that for yourself as a fun way to explore, I can imagine that being fun. But it being assigned as homework feels stressful to me. But it might just be the connotation of it being homework, right? Like, that's what's interesting. At least I'm realizing now that the reason why we don't like homework is because it's forced upon us, right? Like, usually the connotation with homework is that it's stuff that you don't actually want to do. And sometimes you have to do things that you don't want to do to like get good at a skill. Sometimes you do have to sit down and do a drawing exercise or do a sketch in a way that you initially didn't want to, but then later you'll appreciate it. So there's always that like give and take of doing things that maybe you don't really necessarily want to do in the moment. But in those situations, I do think that you want to ask yourself, how could you enjoy that, right? So if something is a necessary part of the process, for example, I've always struggled with colors, as I mentioned earlier. I always struggled with colors, and the question I had to ask myself was, one, do I actually need colors in my pieces, right? So technically I could just leave these pieces black and white. Like, I could just approach all my stuff black and white. But then I realized like that's not really what I want to be doing. I want to color my piece. I like color. So then I had to ask myself, like, how do I find an approach that works well for me? So it's not just brute forcing myself into a process that doesn't work for me. It's about finding that space that like, oh, this is how I have fun with this. Which means that you have to explore things that you might not be comfortable with at first. That dance is complicated. And I've been thinking about like, how do I convey that to my students, like that balance? Because some of you want to do things that are very hard. Like if there are pieces that you want to make that are challenging, there are going to be aspects of that probably won't feel necessarily the most fun the entire way through. So that's where you like have to develop strategies around, how do I enjoy this? How do I make this feel right for me? Yeah, getting your parent to do your homework for you. At least your parents were willing to do your homework for you. It is funny how normal that is. Like, that's fairly normal, right? Like, so many parents end up doing their kids' homework just because it's like, well, gotta help my kid get through school. I do wonder how like schools will change in the future. Like I would love it if schools like taught emotional resilience, which I know that's not like an easy thing to teach necessarily, but just like being able to handle life in a way that's like good. Because that's what I wish I had been taught when I was younger. Just like, how do you deal with your inner voices? Like, it is crazy to me that like, it's crazy to me how common of an issue it is that like, that, I'm saying like way too many times. It is surprising to me how many people struggle with their internal voices, and it's not something that gets discussed in schools. Or at least not in the schools I went to. Which I guess people are scared to discuss it because you're like, oh, well, maybe you need to be like a psychologist to have any conversation around this. But I don't know. I feel like that's a lost opportunity. Like I think so many people resonate with my videos because I discuss the inner voice problem, like the critical voices, the having high expectations of yourself. And I feel blessed that I get to be the person that helps with that. But at the same time, I'm a little bit like, well, shouldn't this be kind of normal? Shouldn't this be something that like we all discussed earlier in life? You know, I get emails from people who are significantly older, and they have these critical voices inside their heads that they've never been told to, like, well, you can actually change that. Like no one's given them the hope that you don't have to stay with those voices. Those voices aren't permanent. Because my internal dialogue is way better now, way healthier now than it ever has been in my entire life. And that didn't just happen by accident. What time is it there? Right now it's 2:06 p.m. What time zone are you in? I wish you taught out of school. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that you say that, but at the same time, I do think that teaching online has this like beautiful aspect of being able to touch so many more people. That's one of my favorite things. It's just the amount of emails that I get from different parts of the world. Like I have students all over the world, and being able to see that impact is part of what's so exciting about being a teacher online. It's my favorite thing. I probably look at my Google Analytics maybe a little bit too much, but it is exciting because they show you this map of all the different countries that you have people who visit your site from, and being able to see that I have all these different students everywhere. It's really satisfying because I feel like I get to serve a lot more people. So like teaching people in schools would also be fun. Like maybe I'll consider doing that sometime in the future, but I love teaching online. I love YouTube. I just love it here. So I don't really feel that temptation. I've had people ask me that if I would consider teaching in person, and there are obviously things that you can do in person that you can't really do online that are a little bit harder, right? You can have a deep conversation with a student that's a little bit more real time. But at the same time, when I interact with people through email, I'm like, well, this gives us both time to like really think about what we're about to say, and that might also be a benefit here. But yeah, maybe I'll teach in person sometime. I mean, I was a kid that I would sit for hours drawing. My parents probably saw there was an issue with my looking. Practice patient. Hi from Syria. Hello everyone. Yukuri Odyssey. I'm probably butchering your name, sir. Sorry. My parents probably saw there was an issue with me looking at a blank page for a goal. Yeah, for a good while, just looking at blank pages. Yeah, but you know, there's so many worse things that you could have been doing. I feel like drawing is it's such an insight into how a person's mind is working. So I think that's what's really fun. When I watch people draw, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. Is just that like, you almost get like this window into how this person's mind operates in a way that isn't necessarily intellectually explainable, right? Like when you see an artist's work and you resonate with it, you feel like you're connected to this artist, but it's kind of difficult to explain it in words. And I think that's why it's valuable. You know, this like abstract connection, this deeper intuition is what's really satisfying. So yeah, you staring at pages is funny, but at the same time, I can imagine that your parents were very excited to see like what you're about to draw. even kids' drawings are exciting to look at if you really think about it in those terms, that like this is an abstraction of how this person's mind works. Like I think it's super exciting. It's super fun. And you become stronger as a result if you practice resilience and patience. Yes, absolutely. But it's challenging because like these terms like resilience, patience, what do these words mean and how do you develop them in a healthy way? I think a lot of times the word resilience is used just to like cover up your feelings. Like don't deal with your feelings, just be headstrong and keep pushing, which like that works for a period of time. But I do think there's a better form of resilience. Like I think emotional resilience is a little bit more like, yeah, in certain moments you put aside your feelings because you have to deal with something, but at the same time you also need to process those feelings and learn how to deal with them a little bit better. I'm not saying that you're using those terms wrong. I'm saying that in the scope of what you see online, a lot of times these terms are used wrong. Hi from Syria. That's awesome. That is crazy to me. You're in Syria. I'm in Toronto. Are you Indian? Yeah, basically. I'm Tamil, but I was born and raised in Norway and I live in Canada. So I'm like a weird mixture of things, but genetically I'm Tamil, which is like the teardrop of India, if you know what that is. Are you drawing in tablet? Yeah, so this is an iPad that I'm drawing on. So I don't have a camera that works. Like I have great cameras, but they're not great for streaming. Like I wish I could ink on stream, but my camera overheats, so I can't really stream any other format than this right now. And I did consider buying a new camera for streaming specifically, but those cameras that like last, like that don't overheat and look good when it comes to the inking, like is actually able to focus on small line work, they're really expensive. So you know, maybe in the future, maybe in a year or two from now, but for now I think a lot of the streams will be colors, which is fine. Like it's not, I think recording videos of the inking so I can focus on the inking and then streaming the colors might be a good way to do both. You know, you guys get to see the colors happening here, and then in the videos you can see how the inks happen. Especially because I'm yapping so much. I'm yapping a lot more than I thought I'd be. You know, you guys are fun to talk to, so maybe colors is better. Like working digitally, at least I can undo something if I mess it up. If I'm inking a piece and I can make a mistake, it's quite heartbreaking sometimes. You know, there's many pieces where I may put down lines where I'm like, oh my god, if only I could undo this, it would feel so good. But I just like working traditionally, so I don't really have that. I don't want to switch to digital just for that. Do you understand Tamil language? No. Well, I understand it somewhat, but I didn't grow up speaking it. So I can understand when my parents speak to me here and there, but I'm not fluent in it. And it is something that I want to work on maybe. It's hard, right? Because there's so many different skills I want to learn. Learning how to speak Tamil would be fun. Like it's something that I wish I could do. But it's just like I already have so much on my plate. Like I got to update my courses. Like if I look at my schedule of things I need to do this week, there's so much to do. So right now I don't consider myself fluent in Tamil at all. If someone spoke to me in Tamil, I usually catch what they're saying, but no, I'm not fluent, unfortunately. Because I moved here to Canada when I was in grade 6 or grade 7. And I didn't speak any English. So I basically had to spend all this time just learning English at like an older age. And then I basically put aside all other languages because I was just like so focused on that, and I never really went back. Which is unfortunate, but you know, such is life. Oh, so many Canadians in here. That's amazing. I never believe in digesting and processing one's emotions. Super valuable life skill. 100%, Nicholas. I agree. And it's a skill that people should be taught. Like I don't see the potential downside there. It almost only looks like upside as long as it's taught by someone who has the wisdom to be like, well, this might not work for everyone, but for the people that it would work for and you could teach, it would be so useful. Because it's like a skill that applies to all aspects of life. You're always going to have to deal with emotionally challenging things. almost all the emails I get from students come down to that, where it's just like, oh, I'm struggling with these things emotionally, and how can you help me? Is most of the questions, right? Like, I do get some technical questions as well, but it's so rare compared to some of the mindset things. It's always the mindset things, and that might just be because I basically mostly want to talk about that. I love teaching technical skills as well, but that's not what's the most interesting to me. I think the psychology, the mental well-being, those things are way more interesting. So do I have a romantic partner? Yes, I do. Let me make sure. Yeah. Let me just get back to messages here. Same for me. I definitely believe in digesting feeling lows. I can understand my parents talking in their native tongue, but I can't speak it. Same, yeah, wow, exactly the same thing. I'm late to school, Conwell, but I also feel like it's gotten worse in my opinion, like high school. I hated my high school years. Oh, I'm sorry that you didn't like those years. Yeah. I quite enjoyed my high school years. Well, hindsight bias, right? It's like, in hindsight, it's a little bit easier to realize that I don't hate it. It was obviously challenging. Like, I think high school is emotionally very, very difficult for everyone. I don't think, because you're becoming an adult. Like, I don't think it can be made easy. I think it's supposed to be challenging. But I do think that most people could do so much better if they were taught what emotional resilience means. Like, how do you process your feelings? How do you do hard things, basically? Is it like fundamentally the thing? Like, how do you transform yourself in a way that makes sense for you? And even if people didn't teach it necessarily, like even if they didn't teach you specific skills, just having the conversation about how hard things can be, I think could be very important. I actually think the younger generation is way better at that. Like, when I meet younger people who are like in their early 20s, for example, they have so much more knowledge about mental health and being good to yourself, the inner critic, all these things. Now, a lot of those people are also addicted to their phones, so it's like a little bit of a catch-22 for that generation. But I think there's so much conversation happening on a lot of these platforms about, how do you be a good person to yourself? How do you be a good friend to yourself? Those conversations are happening a lot more now, and that's a great sign. But I wish it was something that everyone had access to at a younger age, or at least like plant the seed that, like, oh, you can feel good in your own mind, like you can be your own friend. Which is something like I'm actively working on a lot now, where I'm just trying really hard to be a better friend within myself. But a little bit bummed that I wasn't taught that sooner, because I think it's a learnable skill. It's an actual skill that you can practice. It's not like this. It's not this random thing. Like, it's not like you have to be born with it to learn it. It's like, no, you can just teach yourself how to be better to yourself. And maybe just isn't the right word, but you guys know what I mean. It's not just teach yourself how to be better to yourself, but it is essentially that you can't learn it. Just makes it sound like it's small. It's not small at all. It's quite big, but it's both harder and easier than I thought it would be. It's like hard but simple. A lot of it comes down to just being mindful of how you talk to yourself when you make a mistake, especially. Like, if you're having a hard day and you go through a rough day, how rough are you with yourself after? Like, do you punish yourself in your own mind after? Like, I think being mindful of those types of things, you can drastically adjust how you talk to yourself, and it takes a lot of practice, but tremendously valuable, I think, ultimately. High school years, are you... Yes, this is Procreate. I'm drawing in Procreate. I think that's what you're asking, what draw an app. Jesse, you're 20. Oh, very young. Many years of drawing ahead of you. Which artist inspired you most during your childhood days? I don't remember specific artists. I read a lot of like, in where I grew up, there's a lot of like illustrated books that are, they kind of have this like childhood folklore style drawings. If you look up like Arthur Rackham, I'll put that name in the chat. Arthur Rackham. I think Arthur Rackham. If you look up his stuff, a lot of those drawings, a lot of the stuff that I saw growing up was kind of similar to that. And also like Calvin and Hobbes, loved Calvin and Hobbes. But interesting enough, I wasn't, I don't know, I did spend time drawing as a kid, but I wasn't the kid that drew all the time, I think. I think I picked up drawing at a later age. My memory of my childhood is kind of like foggy. I don't remember a lot of the details, but I was a very outdoorsy kid, so I don't spend like tons of time drawing. I actually picked up drawing. I did a lot more drawing at a later age when I decided that like, hey, this is something I love doing. I love designing things. I love sitting at my table and drawing. So I'm going to pursue this, become an art teacher. But that wasn't something that was like, I wasn't like a naturally talented art kid, you know. I think some of you might be that, right? Like some of you were the art kid in your school. I wasn't really the art kid in my school. Like I was always creative. I was always in band. I was always in art classes and stuff, but it wasn't like my entire identity, if that makes sense. Which has its ups and downs. I think it took me longer to find my creative voice because I wasn't one of those kids. I think a lot of those people find their creative voice much younger, which I think is beautiful, which is great. But I think that was like one of the downsides. But I think one of the upsides is that it's also why I ended up becoming an art teacher on YouTube. I drew all the time. I'd bring my sketchbook outside and draw using chalk. Oh, that's amazing. Chalk. Chalk in your sketchbook or chalk on the ground? Or are you talking about crayons? Is there chalk you can use in sketchbooks? Now I'm realizing that maybe I don't know. Maybe there are mediums. Can you use chalk in your sketchbook? Maybe I'm ignorant here. Maybe I don't realize that there's all these different ways that chalk is being used. Well, I guess graphite isn't that different from chalk, is it? Joy, unfortunately, I can't read what that says, so I don't. Both on the ground and in your sketchbook. I didn't know you could do that. I didn't decide to learn how to draw until last year. I've always been more of a writer. It's what I've studied in college. Oh, beautiful. The two, I think all crafts, they like complement each other really well. Like being a writer, I think is such an advantage as not like a creative. Like no matter what you pursue, I think being able to write, being able to draw, being able to do anything, write music, they all complement each other really well. Because it's kind of what I was saying earlier is that like art isn't this separate thing. It's not like it's not like art is over here and then all of your other aspects of your life is over here and there's like a dividing line between the two. Usually they dance together. It's all just one soup. Like I dance as a hobby, like, and I dance quite a bit. And everything I learn within my dancing kind of applies to my drawing practice as well. Like I learn about myself through the dancing and then I apply it to the drawings and vice versa. It's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Yeah, Nicholas, learning. Yeah, you said, honestly, I always wanted to learn how to draw though, then realized I could do what I want as an adult. That is the best part of becoming an adult. Anytime people complain about like they miss their childhood or like they miss being in high school, I understand that having to make money can be so stressful and like the amount of responsibilities as an adult isn't the most fun. You know, it's not the worst either, but the freedom that you have as an adult is so much better. Like I'm so much happier now than I ever have in my life. And I think a big part of that is because I've had the exact same realization. Like I can pick up a new hobby tomorrow. Like if I want to learn how to do Muay Thai tomorrow, I can go and take a class tomorrow and I get to decide that. Like there's no one I have to ask permission from. My bank account might not like it, you know, which, you know, there's consequences there, but it's ultimately just like your choice. You get to choose. So learning how to draw as an adult, I think, is a great example of that. Like, I'm learning how to swim, and I didn't know how to swim, which is kind of embarrassing to think about, just because I didn't grow up I didn't grow up with friends who did a lot of swimming, and I just didn't grow up in an area where swimming was something that people did. So I'm learning how to swim now, and I'm realizing, like, just because I'm an adult doesn't mean I need to stop learning. Which is why I really love it when I have students who are beginners at a later age. Like, I've gotten emails from people who are 60, 70, who are picking up drawing for the first time. And that brings me so much joy, because I'm like, yeah, like, you can learn new things. Like, you don't have to just be who you were 20 years ago. You can just learn new things. It's always, that's like the beauty of the internet, especially. You can like do it from home. You don't even have to leave your house anymore. Although at some scales, like Muay Thai, you probably have to leave your house. But I think the beauty of drawing is that you get to do it from home, and it's also fairly cheap. Out of all the hobbies you can have, I feel like drawing is one of the cheapest. You really just need a sketchbook, a sketchbook and a pencil. And if you like buy one course, it's like most drawing courses you can spend months and months on. At least compared to dance classes. Like, when I take dance classes, each dance class is like maybe $20 to $25. Cost adds up, racks up real quick. Like, $25, I could buy a pencil and a lot of paper. Enough paper that you'd probably run out eventually, but at least a month. $25 you can get a sketchbook that's 108 pages probably, right? So 108 pages of drawing. That's a lot of drawing. Depending on how fast you draw as well. If you're someone who draws slowly, even better, you're saving so much money. I sketch pretty quickly. I draw pretty quickly in my sketchbooks. So, a little bit more expensive, but even then it's like, you're probably not spending thousands of dollars a year on art. Like, at least if you do it as a hobby and it's something that you don't do every single day. I don't even think most oil painters spend that much money on tools. Like, the upfront cost is high, and if you spend stuff on education, then yeah, there's some cost there, but even then you're not spending nearly as much as someone who does like skiing or horse riding as a hobby. Where am I at? I don't think I cared. Yeah, you didn't care about the fundamentals. Yeah, and I think learning the fundamentals is obviously useful if you're trying to like improve your craft. And if you specific things you want to learn how to draw, right? So if you want to learn how to draw portraits, focusing on fundamentals is great. But I do think that there's this trick where you can bring some of that childlike curiosity and joy into learning how to draw the fundamentals. And I think that is what I'm trying to teach. But it is hard. It is hard to tell people, like, here are all the different strategies for enjoying the practice. And telling people to, like, do that it's a hard sell to a certain degree. It's hard to convince people to do that. It's so much easier to be like, here's before and after. If you take my course, that, like, you'll draw like this before, and then you'll draw perfectly after. But it's like, that's not the full story. And I feel like it misses a lot of the value of drawing. But yeah, like, when you're a kid, you're not going to focus on the fundamentals, and I think that's actually better. I think spending a period of time as an artist just drawing for fun is some of the best things that you can do. Like, if you're someone who's completely new to drawing and you're watching this video and like you've never drawn before, spend like at least a couple of weeks. Spend a couple of months just drawing for fun. Like, I would actually say stay away from drawing exercises until you have some of the joy already. I think that's one of the better ways to do it, especially if you're new to drawing. I write poetry. I was used to drawing pictures and mostly little doodles. I wrote it mostly with little doodles. Oh, beautiful. So you write poetry. Yes, you do all the fun things. I actually tried picking up poetry, but I couldn't really wrap my mind around it. But that's something that I'm thinking about. Maybe I should pick back up. The challenge is usually almost spooked myself. I think the challenge is the opportunity cost, right? Like, the more hobbies you add, the less time you have for each hobby. That's like the only downside, is that you have to choose which thing that you want to focus on. That's part of the challenge. But yeah, poetry. I remember that, I think like 5 years ago, I bought a bunch of poetry books, and then I tried to learn poetry, and then I just my mind just didn't want to wrap itself around it at the time. But I'm sure if I put effort into it again, I could like learn some of the basics and develop my love for it. How I know I am an artist. I don't know if you're asking me, how do you know you're an artist, or are you like, is that a question or is that a statement? Bro, I think I'm the littlest here. I'm like, wow. Good job drawing at a young age. Yeah, just stick to it. Enjoy the drawing practice. There's so much to explore, so much to learn. I felt my mind went blank there for a second. What were we talking about? I do it both at the same time. I write a poem and then I draw the cover of it and staple it together. Oh, beautiful. Yeah, yeah. I know that that's like quite, I've seen that a lot, right? There's a lot of poets who like do these small doodles and stuff, and that's a great way to mix the two. I do think that writing and drawing, they do go well together, like in terms of hobbies. I actually think writing goes well with everything, like, because writing is basically thinking, and I think there's a tremendous amount of value there. But also I know that not everyone thinks in writing. Like for me, I wasn't someone who wrote much when I was in school and stuff. Like I had to teach myself writing over the past couple of years because I realized that as someone who wants to teach, writing and introspecting is like tremendously valuable. Like it makes me a way better teacher being able to write. And the writing doesn't even necessarily have to be good, but the more you write, the more you are grapple with your own thoughts. So I do think that there's tremendous power there. Flowing with enjoying some of the line shape exercises more than sketching. Yeah, if that's what you enjoy, if you enjoy the exercises, then do them 100%. I understand that gives you like a sandbox to play within. That could be very, very helpful. The only concern is that sometimes beginners get caught up in this game where they think they suddenly need to like improve quickly, and I think that's what's scary. I think that's why like if you can get in touch with the joy early on and just hold on to it and keep it front of mind, I think that's kind of what I'm saying. It's just like try to make sure that you remember why you do this. Like don't lose sight of that. And if doing exercise and drawing exercises is the way you have fun, then you keep doing it. Right? I'm not saying to stop doing it if you are having fun. But I can't imagine. I think it would be hard for me to fall in love with drawing if I had started off with doing like exercises, for me personally. And I have seen students struggle with that exactly the same thing. But it is person specific. It is idiosyncratic in many ways. So I'm just like blocking in colors. So this brush that I'm using right now is a fun brush. So it adjusts colors. Like I'm just gonna show you guys here. It like I've changed the settings so that it shifts the hue slightly. So every time I put down a brush stroke, the color is slightly different. So this one there's quite a bit of difference here, right? Like it's not even, and I think this is pressure based right now. Yes, I believe it's pressure. Yes, it's pressure based. So that's a pressure based one, and there's quite a bit of range there. But I also made this other brush that is it this one? Oh no, actually, but that was the crazy one. Yeah, is that the crazy one? Let me check. Yes, this is the regular one. The second one is the crazier one. This is like there's quite a range right there. But then I have this one that is a little bit more subtle, so that the shifts aren't as big. That's the one I should be using actually. But I like makes it feel a little bit more organic, like handmade. Can you tell me good tips about perspective, because I'm so bad at it? In terms of drawing perspective, that's a complicated topic. So I have a video that's linked below, like it's in the description. That's my 54 free drawing exercises. A lot of those exercises are based on forms, right? So the forms are just like these 3D forms, right? So like, for example, a glass is a cylinder, right? So there's a cylindrical shape, and then like, you have box shapes or whatever. Like there are certain primitive forms that you can draw. Learning how to draw those forms can help you understand how to draw in perspective. So I would recommend that you would just check out that and watch that video and just take some of those exercises and play around. But I also would recommend that you don't stress too much about learning perspective just because someone told you to learn perspective. I think what is more helpful is ask yourself what it is that you actually want to draw. Like, what is it that, like, what is fun for you to draw? And then focus a little bit more on that. Because you learn perspective through drawing something. So for example, if you're interested in learning how to draw plants, if you just draw a lot of plants and then think about perspective and think about how it applies to it, that's a better way to learn than trying to learn things in isolation. I think that can be helpful. Like, there's use for that. Like, if you are studying a specific aspect of drawing, there's use for that. But at the same time, I think you don't want to fall into a trap where you're just learning things to learn them instead of actually drawing. Apply what you learn, you know. It's a big part of why I keep pushing people to, like, I keep trying to push my students into project-based learning. It's like, start a project, even if it's just like a small 3-page sketchbook project where you're kind of just like doing a little bit of doodles. That could be a project, right? You can set intentions for that. You can write out, okay, what is it that I want to explore here? And I think that way of learning is one of the more effective ways of learning. Obviously it doesn't work for everyone, but I've found that people who make their own projects learn so much more about themselves than people who just do exercises. Because obviously, like, if you sit down and ask yourself what you care about and then make a project around that, that's obviously going to have a deeper emotional impact on you as a human. So that is what, like, the whole inner artist course is based on. It's just that project-based learning, finding joy in the practice, figuring out your style, all that stuff, all that good stuff, all the stuff that I deeply believe in. One of the big benefits of writing things out as well is that you clarify to yourself what you believe in. I don't think I would have it would be very hard for me to develop clarity about what I believe in my art practice without writing it down. Now, you don't have to share it with anyone, right? It could be completely private. I choose to share it because I'm a teacher, but the act of writing it out is tremendously helpful. Yeah, I personally started drawing cubes, but I found that it's boring. Yeah, like, a lot of these exercises aren't the most fun, which is why I recommend that you try them. Obviously, try them and see if you can enjoy them. Ask yourself the question if you can make it enjoyable. So maybe cubes aren't the most fun, but is there a way that you can do it that would actually be fun? But if you can't find a way to make it fun, then you don't have to do it. You don't have to draw any specific way. It's completely free. Like, there are no real rules. Which is frustrating sometimes. Sometimes I get comments from people who are angry that I don't force their rules on everyone, you know? I think a lot of people feel this pressure that if they're playing a specific type of game, their specific art game, that everyone should play the exact same game. Which I understand that pressure. Like, I'm trying to be careful not to also do the exact same thing in the opposite direction, where I think everyone should do the thing that I'm doing. But I do think if you're a hobbyist, I don't see the point in forcing yourself to do things that you don't want to do. Because I think, like, if you want to do art as a profession, I think some people get away with it for short periods of time. Like, I don't think you can do that forever, but you hear about these artists who spent 4 years just grinding it out in a basement, didn't really like it at all, just forced themselves. But eventually they make it through, and the reason why they were able to push so hard was because they were doing it for financial reasons. And when you have that kind of financial pressure, you're much more likely to, like, basically keep pushing. But if you only do this for fun, if you do this as a hobby, which is probably, if you're drawing along with me, you probably are someone who do this as a hobby, because those are the people that I'm usually talking to. then that's not a good strategy. After I moved to drawing, did you personally started drawing cubes? Yeah, boring. Curious about how you manage to share your iPad screen on your live stream. Is there any app or equipment you use? No, it's literally just a USB-C cable that's plugged into my computer, and it just does it automatically. You don't, at least I'm on a Mac though, so I don't know if that makes a difference, but I don't think so. I think I didn't have to do anything, so take that as you will. You might have to Google a little bit. Like, ultimately, that's how I learned everything, right? I learned how to do this 2 hours ago, so I don't think you need anything. At least that's my experience. After I moved on to drawing trees. Yeah, and you can learn perspective and everything you need to learn from drawing trees. You don't need to draw anything else. Do you think it's good to find other artist friend with a similar style or with different style than your own? Sheesh. No art friends, so beggars can't be choosers, am I right? Don't judge yourself. Like, I think a lot about friendships, and I've been wanting to do a bunch of videos on friendship because I've gone through different phases of life where I had tons of friends that I didn't feel a deep connection with, periods of life where I was basically a hermit. Like, there's 1 year where I think I saw my friends a total of 20 hours collectively. So imagine a whole year and you're only seeing friends for about 20 hours total. It might even be less than that, but if I'm being like, that's spending a lot of time alone, right? But now I have a lot of beautiful friendships. And what I will say is, I wouldn't judge your friends based on art styles, because the idea that you're going to find someone who has the same art style as you, it seems so low, right? I think what you have to prioritize when it comes to finding art friends or friends who are supportive of your art is just chemistry. Like, do you get along? Is it a person that supports you? I have a few art friends, but I don't have that many art friends. Most of the art friends that I have right now are from a mentorship group that I paid for. It was like an art class that I paid for online. And I haven't seen any of these people in real life, right? So all my friends that I have in real life who are supportive of my art practice aren't other artists. They're regular people, if you will, or they have other hobbies, but they aren't like artists. They don't make art. When I show them my art, they don't have like critique for it usually. They just love it and they're supportive of it. I think just try to find people who are supportive of you, and even if they're not artists, that's fine. Like, you want someone to hype you up and like be a cheering squad for what you do, and I don't think you need them to be artists. Now, obviously, there's certain conversations you can have with artists that you can't necessarily have with other people. Like, there's certain conversations that are a little bit harder to have, but I'm a firm believer that you don't necessarily need art friends to fulfill that. I think you just need friends who are good. Like, now, if there are specific things that you want to do, like if there are activities that you want to do that are art-based, then yeah, then find art friends. But I think it's just hard to find people who do art, because a lot of times people do art in the privacy of their own homes, right? So like, for example, with my dance friends, it's really easy for me to make more dance friends because they go to dance classes. So they have, like, a lot of times if you want to get good at dancing, you kind of have to leave your house. But with drawing, the big part of the beauty is that you can do it in your privacy of your home. You can spend time with yourself, but that it's a double-edged sword where people aren't forced to go out and draw. So if you want to find art friends, sometimes it can be a little bit challenging, but it really depends on your area. Maybe just go take a class, but yeah, you don't have to judge yourself if you don't have art friends. Don't worry. I'm in a similar boat, and I think a lot of people are. I think for a lot of artists, they do art for themselves and they don't have tons of art friends because it's not usually like a very collaborative activity unless you make it that way. Which obviously, like, if that's what you're interested in, then definitely go find art friends. But the quality of your life really is dependent on the quality of your relationships, right? And the impact you have on other people. That is why I do this. It's because I realize that what I love as a teacher is that I get to impact people. And I think that's such a human need. I think even for a lot of artists, even if you do the art for yourself, there's like, maybe it's too broad of a statement. I think a lot of artists want their art to have an impact on other people if they could. But I think ultimately you want your art to have an impact on yourself, and then the way it transforms who you are as a human being, that you can well, like, the art practice will transform how you feel about yourself, and then you will show up better for other people, is what I was trying to say. But yeah, like, friendship is challenging, so, take what you can find, basically. Have things I've bought one recently, so I don't know much. Thanks for answering. Yeah, no problem. Everyone's a beginner at some point, right? Did you have any friends that were interested in art? I have a lot of creative friends. Like most of my friendships are based in like music or dance. So I had a lot of friends in that area, in those areas. And a lot of people have hobbies, right? Like it's fairly uncommon to meet someone who doesn't have any hobbies. At least that's been my experience. So yeah, I have friends who are interested in art, but I don't have any art friends necessarily. Like, well, I don't have any art friends that I hang out with in person. I have art friends online, but that is a unique situation. I don't know. I don't know if everyone can find that. It's not something that I'm confident enough where I could recommend it to you. Like, I can't recommend you go find online art friends. I've heard other art teachers say that, and I'm always a little bit like, how? Like, do you really think it's that easy to find friends online? I actually find, yeah. Well, then again, I guess I haven't tried very hard, so that's maybe I don't have the expertise to say that to someone. Thank you. I'm glad I stumbled onto your channel a while back. Yay. What you said is true for me. I have suffered from creative burnout. Thanks for what you said. There's more joy in my practice. Beautiful. I'm so happy to hear that, Michelle. Yes, I think creative burnout is so common. It's one of the downsides with all the tutorials online. It's one of the downsides of all this information that's available to us now. So that is a big part of what I'm trying to change, is just like make sure that all my students do it from a place of love and do it from a place of joy. And take breaks. I think that's one of the big things. Like, you don't have to push yourself. Like, there's no deadline, there's no destination. All of that's just a lie. You don't need to go anywhere. In my most recent video, I said that too. It's just like, it's just drawings all the way down. Like, you're not, after you finish a drawing, you're just going to start another drawing. There's nothing else. Like, there isn't. And the quicker you can realize that, the less pressure you can put on yourself, and just be like, okay, well, if I need to take a break, I can take a break. Because it's not like I'm going to rush to a place where suddenly this becomes different from what it actually is right now. Now, hopefully your feelings around the art will deepen and you will develop your skills around treating yourself well. Like, those things will change, but that has so much more to do with how you treat yourself rather than what the drawings look like on paper. The reason I find line shape exercises so nice is because I'm past my honeymoon art phase and my inner critic is less loud doing them. Yeah, if your inner critic is less loud doing it, then that's beautiful. Perfect. I like doing art exercises too. I'm not like telling people not to do them completely. But you have enough self-awareness where you're deciding to do that from a place of wisdom. You realize within yourself that, like, hey, I enjoy this. That's why I'm doing it. And that's the place you want to be in. You want to be in a place where you can say that confidently. And if you are someone who has that self-awareness, that's a huge advantage. That just makes everything better. Like, I actually want to make a video about self-awareness, because I do think that there are a lot of people, including myself, who think of themselves as self-aware, but they are only aware of their negative traits instead of their positive traits. And that isn't actually being self-aware, right? Having awareness of something is having a good understanding of it, right? Like, being able to see it. So if you only see the negative, that just means you have a loud inner critic. Doesn't mean anything about that doesn't make you a self-aware person necessarily. Oh, I also like that you said inner critic. I do like that term. I think that term is very useful. Because then, like, if you're able to label a voice and be like, that's my inner critic, that's not me, then it becomes easier to, like, put distance between you and that voice. So I hope you guys are drawing along, just like having fun. Obviously no pressure. If you are taking a break from your drawing practice, that's completely fine as well. but if you're looking for an activity, my main goal here is just to like encourage drawing together, because that's what I use streams for. I use streams for having someone in the room, you know. It feels a bit like if you have companionship while you're drawing, it's easier to sink in. It's easier to spend the time using the internet for good, which is always tricky. Like I had to keep social media off my phone because I just can't do it. I just can't handle it. It's too addicting. I don't understand how people survive with it on their phones. Like I just don't. Maybe I have less self-control than the average person, but I don't know. It's hard. Ooh, a little purple tone. Oh, I like that. A little bit colder tone. Warm tone. And then we have slightly colder tone. Let's try it. So sometimes I put it like one color on one layer, and then that way I can adjust them like the way I did just there. But a lot of times I'll also just put a bunch of colors on one layer like this. So the fun thing is you can just go in here and like make color variants. But this can quickly turn into procrastination, where I'm not actually making any progress. I'm just playing with the sliders all day. Which, it's fun, but also, you know, if you try to finish a piece, that's not the way to do it. I'm just gonna go in here. Like I said earlier in the stream, it's like I really like this approach to colors where I'm discovering them rather than having it all planned. And that is the way that I've found that works well for me. But at the same time, I can't recommend this to people because I don't know if this will work well for you. Not, like being deliberate about the way you approach your practice and what process works well for you is really, really important. So it goes back to that self-awareness piece. Like the better you understand what is fun for you, the more quickly you can make those decisions. Which is why I do think that writing down your expectations, which I do in the beginning of the Inner Artist course, writing out your expectations and grappling with them is one of the best ways you can go about like developing an understanding of where your voice begins and other people's voices end, you know. A lot of times we take on expectations externally, and that's scary sometimes. Like it's scary to me how easy it is to just like take on other people's opinions. It happens so fast. It's crazy. I become so much more aware of how often my brain is just like, oh, we should just do this thing that we saw someone else do. And it's like, but why? Like, I don't actually want to do that. You're just telling me to do this because you saw someone else do it. Doesn't like, that's not a wise choice, you know? Why would I abandon the thing that is actually interesting to me to do this other thing? That doesn't make any sense. But the mind, you know, likes following. It likes doing what's easiest, right? If you just like blindly follow someone else, that is easier, right? It's less resource intensive. Your brain will save so much energy by just following other people, but you're not going to get the results that you want by doing that. You might get some short-term results, right? But to find your own creative voice and be your own person, it's like you actually have to like draw those lines and hold those boundaries in your own mind about like, okay, this is who I am, and this is where all these external expectations come from, you know, where all these external expectations are pushing me around, bullying me a little bit. And you have to figure out that dance between being influenced by teachers because you want to improve and you want to do things with your art, which might just mean that you want to be able to draw a little bit better. Maybe you want to be more in touch with yourself. And like, where do you draw the line between your teachers, your mentors, and who you actually are as a person? That's why, like in the latest video, I talked so much about like detoxing away from content for a moment. Something I believe in a lot is just like, take a break. Just take a break for a week. Don't consume any art content, and then draw and see what happens. Now, if the only way you get to the drawing table is by consuming content, then I'm not going to tell you to stop completely, but I think there's opportunity there to discover things about yourself. My iPad is heating up. It is hot. It is very warm. I am a little bit worried about it overheating, but we'll see how long this lasts. Heating problems left and right. The reason why I don't stream with my like fancy camera and like do inking is because it overheats. The funny thing is the reason why I have this cable is because I think last year, was it a year ago? Maybe it was a year ago? I don't remember how, yeah, it might have actually been a whole year ago. I was trying to stream using my camera and then it kept overheating, and then out of frustration I stopped. And only like a couple of days ago I realized I could just stream using my iPad and not worry about inking on the stream. So it would be funny if my iPad, you know, does the same thing. Just like, oh no, sorry, I'm also gonna overheat. You thought you found a solution? Nope. And go out and buy that expensive camera if you want to stream. Would be funny, but I don't think that's gonna be a problem. I just need to buy like a case that like has fans in it for the iPad. What size model? It's the iPad Pro something or other. Is it iPad Pro? Yeah, iPad Pro. iPad Pro, it's like one of the big boys. So here, I'll hold it up. It's quite big. It's quite big. I think it's 3 years old, 2 years old? I don't know. I don't remember. I also have a smaller iPad, so the main reason why the main challenge with the iPad is that you kind of need to upgrade models if you want to have really high DPI. Because the problem is with something like Procreate, I have to work at a specific DPI to get a certain amount of layers. Like, I don't know if you work digitally, you already know this, but for anyone who doesn't work digitally, you need kind of a stronger iPad if you want higher resolution and also more layers. So that is like the reason why I had to upgrade to this, because I was like, for me to work at the size that I want to work at, I need it to be stronger. So there's a part of me that wants to upgrade again, but I need to check what the latest one can handle, because I do want these files to be big in case I ever want to print them large. Because the project that I'm starting here, like this drawing this is technically the second drawing in this series, but I do think that this might end up being the first one. But I'm working on this project that is about friendship, and ultimately I want to get this project printed. So that is kind of what I'm working towards here. Like, I want to have something that is a substantial project. I'm hoping that I can do a lot of these drawings that are in this series of these characters that are representations of friendships. And then I want to eventually get them printed as a postcard set. Not a postcard set, but like a card set, like a greeting card set, so that people can use those as a way to express their love for their friends, and because that would make a lot of sense for this project, I think. Yes. Michelle, what I get from you is sometimes you need to stop following others and start following yourself. I was looking through my sketchbook and found stuff that I knew I liked to draw. Now I'm drawing it. Yes, exactly. You need to know when to stop following. It's a dance, right? It's a tango. Like if you're taking it, like if you pay for an expensive drawing course, obviously do the exercises, because you're saying that you want to learn from this teacher, but at the same time also, like, yeah, listen to yourself. Look in your sketchbook, see what drawings that you've done in the past that you really enjoy. That's a great way to do it. It's a great strategy. Look at your older work. Like, what is it that you've liked doing in the past, and just return back to it. It's so funny to me how many of the things that I like drawing now were basically the same. Like a lot of things, like what you like drawing can stay quite the same for a long period of time. Now this is very specific to the person, but it kind of surprised me how much I can draw the same kind, like not the exact same things, but similar things for long periods of time, and it just doesn't get boring. And I think that's a sign that you've found alignment within yourself. Now for some people, that's just not how their creative mind works. I'm not saying that if you are someone who likes jumping around, that's not like a judgment on you, but I have found it surprising how often I just like doing the same things, and I'm totally fine with it. I think the challenge, like the main challenge, is that you might start judging yourself. You might think of yourself as like, oh, maybe I'm not being creative enough. Maybe I'm not doing this enough. And that all of those voices are just lies. Like if you look at a lot of the great artists online, they kind of just work in one style a lot of the times, and a lot of times they work with the same subject matter and themes. They play around with themes here and there, but really it's almost all the same stuff. But because you love it so deeply, you are happy that that artist is repeating themselves. You're happy that they're doing it because it's like, well, I liked you for this stuff, so I'm happy when you do that stuff. When you make more of this feeling, I like coming back to you. So you want to think of your own art practice that way. If you're trying to start fresh and start like, if you're starting from scratch every time you're sitting down to draw and like you're not repeating yourself, like that's stressful, you know? And if you put that pressure on yourself that that's what creativity is, it's just too much. It's just way too much. Here, going in colors. I'm coloring very slowly, but we are making progress here. I'm happy how this is turning out. Because of the inks that I use, I can't actually ink these on paper. Like I couldn't use watercolor over top of the pens that I use. And those are the specific pens that I like. So like yet again, it's like a very, very specific preference that I have. So it's funny how like your art practice will get defined by all these very specific things that you like about the way you work and who you are internally. Which is so much of the fun. If you guys have any questions or topics you want to talk about, feel free to let me know. I'm not going to go over any like technical things here, right? So my whole rant here has basically been that it's so much more about like the personal stuff. Like I have drawing exercises and stuff on the site, but for me, that's not the most interesting thing. I feel like the technical stuff is secondary. I am curious to know how many people, how many artists who do art as a hobby actually push themselves to grow on a technical level, and how many of them would be better off focusing on the creative sides. Now, I obviously have a very strong bias towards the let's have fun, let's draw things that we love side of the argument, but it would be interesting if someone actually collected data on that. Then again, I'd be very skeptical of the data, so I don't even know if I would believe it even if someone did try it. So it's always those pesky financial incentives, you know. I used an iPad Air from 2021. Did you ever have trouble with your posture? When I first started with iPad, I would hunch over it a lot. I've since gotten a stand that helps me with that. Yeah, I've had upper back problems in like a couple of years ago. And ultimately, I just had to exercise more. The way I approach it is that I take breaks through the day. So like I don't sit and draw for many, many hours a single day, like in a single session. So I usually do like a 3-hour session and then take a break, and then I'll come back and do a 2-hour session later in the day. But a lot of times, even then, it's like I spend so much time making courses and tutorials and all that stuff. So I'm not always sitting and drawing that much. So I haven't had that much problem with posture. I would recommend exercise as a way to like protect against some of those issues, but yeah, it's very specific to you. So I don't know, can't really give you advice on that. Have I had problems with posture? Yes, I have. I've had health problems, but that was so much more about not understanding how to relax and not understanding how to do like mobility. So I like improved my hip mobility, and then my lower back got better, and then my upper back got better. So it's like there's so many, like your whole body is interconnected. So I didn't have like very specific posture problems with drawing. It was other issues that were showing up in the drawing practice. I think that's a more accurate description of what happened. But I'm happy that the stand worked for you. Yeah, I've played around with that kind of stuff. I haven't found anything that I really, really liked. For me, I feel a little bit like everything I've tried, so I've used like a drawing table that's like on a slant. Everything I've tried, kind of, the pain moves to a different part of my body. So like, like one posture helps my neck, but then my shoulder is more sore. Or like, like it kind of like moves around. So ultimately what I found for me personally is that I just need to take breaks. I just need to like not be working hard all the time. And that was the solution that I found. But yeah, if you're trying to draw a lot, like if you're a professional artist that's drawing many, many hours a day, I do not know exactly how you would handle that. Got this break book recently called Drawing Stronger by Kyoto Wilberg. Highly recommend. Oh, interesting. Is that like a wellness book? It sounds almost like a exercise book, but it could also be a creative book. Let me look it up. Self-care. Self-care for cartoonists and other visual. Oh, beautiful. That makes so much sense. It makes so much sense that someone would write a book about this. And it's a cartoonist. Oh, great. So you barely even have to read. It's all drawings. Oh, beautiful. Good that you found a book. I didn't even think about that. That's great. I'll definitely have you face racism in Canada. Drawing sharp. That is. Thank you so much for recommending this. I will definitely take a look at this. I'm gonna paste it again in the chat just so that people see it. Thank you so much, 22 Radical Shoes, for recommending. Faisal, have I faced racism in Canada? Well, this is a complicated question, right? Because it is. Have I faced racism? Yeah, like overall, I think you're gonna face racial discrimination here and there if you're in an area where there's a lot of diversity. But I just take that as that's just what it is. Like it's complicated. I'm not sure if I'm able to have a full conversation here about this because it is a hard topic to discuss. Because people have strong feelings about it. People have, it is challenging, and I think Canada is getting a little bit worse on that end right now. And I think there's a lot of hatred that's being passed around, but it depends on where you go. It depends on what you like. I think it's just part of reality to a certain degree that you're going to have to deal with those issues. That's kind of how I'm trying to approach it now, where I'm just like, well, if that happens, it happens, whatever. Like, I have so many beautiful people in my life who are, like, my entire friend group is very diverse. Like, I'm not part of friend groups that look like me, if you will. Does that make sense? Like, none of my friend groups that like my close friends, none of them. I'm not in any group that everyone looks the same. You know what I mean? And by same, what I mean is like ethnically the same. So I'm used to a lot of diversity, and so I feel like I'm protected almost in that way, where like the people I care about the most they treat me with love and care, and they're the only ones that really matter. So I do. Yeah, those racial issues suck. I get comments on YouTube all the time from people that are just like not great, But that just comes with the territory, and I think there maybe is a deeper conversation to be had there, and obviously I have a lot of thoughts on the matter, but in general, my approach is just it is just what it is. I'm not going to try to change that, really. Just remember that there's, like, if you are struggling with that and that is something that's bothering you because you're asking that question, I assume that maybe it's something that's been on your mind. Just remember that what you see online and what you see sometimes here and there is not a reflection of the whole. there's tons of people who really don't care what race you are. Ultimately, they're just looking for people they can connect with. So like, if you are a good friend and you find good friends, some of those things just fade into the background. I do think that there's almost like social immunity once you find good friends, which is a hard thing to tell someone, like, especially if you are struggling with friendships, because I struggled with friendships for a long time. But I feel so much more immune to all of those issues now that I have people in my life who care about me deeply. Because if I face any negative, like anytime I read a negative comment on YouTube, because it comes with the territory, right? Like, put yourself out online, people are going to criticize you. But when I read those comments, I just have to remind myself, like, I have friends who like love and care about me. Like, if I'm having a rough day today, I could call someone and they will be at my house within an hour to be there for me. Like, I have many friends like that, and that's a blessing. And obviously not, I'm very, very lucky. So like, but like, why would I care about this comment online if I have that? Like, I've already won. I don't need your approval. That's all I'm going to say about that issue, because I think that is it is a deeper topic, and I don't think this is the appropriate place to really discuss it, because I think that is a conversation that needs to be had in smaller groups. I think because it's hard to express nuance online. I think it's not the place to do it. Favorite actors in Hollywood? Do I have favorite actors? I'm trying to think. Probably do. But I don't see. I watch way more YouTube than anything else. I also found that I didn't really have friends, just drinking buddies. So when I decided to stop drinking and being in the scene, I found myself quite solo. Yeah, I'm sorry that is hard. That is very, very hard. I haven't gone through that exactly, but I've gone through phases of life where I was basically a hermit. I didn't have any friends. But I think the benefit of being alone is that you can start from scratch and you can develop yourself in a way that feels true to you. And I think that's kind of a blessing of being alone. Like, you don't have to worry as much about external pressure, right? The more friends you have, the more you're going to have to like kind of consider like, oh, like there might be a voice in the back of your head that's wondering like, oh, what will my friends think about this? Yeah. I might make a video on friendships at some point, because it is something I have a lot of thoughts on. But then again, it is a tricky thing, right? Like, I like talking to people about stuff that's interesting to me online, but at the same time, I don't want to present myself as an expert. So like, when I talk about friendships, I'm like, I figure things out on my I figure things out, and there are strategies that I use that I think are very, very effective. But at the same time, I don't teach people how to do this. So I can't really present myself as an expert on the topic. It would be much more me just presenting my experience and making sure trying to make sure that that's clear here. That like, I'm not telling you how to approach your friendships. I'm just telling you how I've approached mine. I'm supposed to be somewhere in 2 hours. Might have to hop off here in a bit, but how we've been going for a while. Hope you guys have been drawing. Thank you guys for keeping me company. This has been tons of fun. I didn't expect so many people to show up the first day, so this is tremendous. Honestly, I thought I was going to be talking to myself this whole time. Like, that's what I was prepared for. I probably do have favorite actors and actresses, but I can't think of any right now, which is strange. I guess that part of my mind is just like not awake right now. It's still asleep, even though it's the afternoon. When it comes to like the conversation around finding art friends, I do think that sometimes people put a lot of pressure on like finding friends who are artists, because they think that other people can't relate to what they're going through. And what I would suggest is that sometimes it can be easier just to find friends who are good friends, and then kind of like bring them on board about what you're doing. Like, so even if they don't naturally understand what it's like to be creative, even if they care enough about you they'll be interested and they'll listen to you, and sometimes that could be better than just finding art friends. Like, I think some people have this like idea that they're going to find like the magical best art friend, and that's going to like help them so much. And it's like, I haven't heard a lot of people have that experience. Now, it could just be that the people who have that experience aren't talking about it online or anything because they're too busy hanging out with their perfect art friends, but I think that's just too much pressure to put on a person. The probability that you're going to find that seems low to me. Any suggestions for trying to sell art or make side income with the doodles we enjoy making? I think mine would make fun stickers, like skateboard stickers, but don't know much about that stuff. Don't know what the challenge here is that I have thoughts on this, but at the same time, I don't feel fully comfortable talking about making money of art, because it is a hard topic to cover, because it's a hard thing to do. One thing that I will say is the question is whether or not you want to sell online or sell in person. If you are someone who lives close to like conventions and stuff, you can look into doing conventions and art fairs, and those can be a great way to do just sales without marketing, but there's a lot of upfront cost. What I would ask you is if there are other ways for you to make money. Like, if you have a job that you can improve at your job and make more money, it might be helpful to keep your art practice sacred. I think things get complicated once you try to make money off your art. Not telling you not to do it necessarily. Like, I'm just spitballing here. I'm telling you that can make things a little bit harder, can make things a little bit more complicated. So I want you to keep that in mind if you do approach it, because I'm obviously in a situation where my art affects my income. So, you know, there's like complications there, but it's such a broad topic, and I would recommend you go look at YouTubers who do make their money off their practice. But also keep in mind that, like, I think the hard part about art as sales is that, let's say you sell stickers. Stickers aren't very high margin. You can't sell a set of stickers for like $100, right? Like, stickers are usually fairly cheap. So if you're selling a low margin product and you're spending all this time shipping and producing it, and you're spending all this time marketing it, you might not make that much money per hour, and you might want to consider improving your job, well, like where you work, like focusing a little bit more on increasing your income from your job than just adding a side hustle. Because the side hustle might just be a lot of hours with very low income. Well, if you have a job inside like a certain business or whatever, you might be able to improve your position in your job in that field and make $5 more per hour without actually increasing the amount of hours, right? You might get look into certifications that you can get or whatever. Like, I don't know what field you work in, but just spitballing here. So the idea is that you want to increase the amount of income you make. Art might not be the first place to go. If it's something that you feel passionate about and it's very interesting to you, then obviously do it. But if you're doing it strictly to make money, and if you were a millionaire right now, would you still do this idea? Like, if the only reason is the money, then maybe try to see if there's other ways you can make money without increasing the amount of hours of work that you have to do. Because it is very hard to run an art business in sales unless you do conventions, unless you have very good marketing skills online. A lot of the people that you see who are successful financially online, a lot of them are YouTubers. So they don't, even though they make their money off their stickers and stuff, they make their money off being a YouTuber because that's how they are doing all their marketing. So say, for example, if I want to sell prints, it's easier for me to sell prints than someone who doesn't have an audience, right? And obviously that's, and then you get into the question, do you want to be a content creator? Do you want to be someone who does YouTube? And those are questions that you are going to have to grapple with. And I know I might sound discouraging up front here, and that's not my intention. My intention is that you really think about what that would mean. What would it actually mean to be making art and trying to make money off it? If it's just for the money because you're struggling financially, which I can obviously relate to, money problems, who doesn't have them, then maybe there's other ways that you can make your money that would be better. Oh, no problem. I'm happy you're asking. I asked you guys for questions because I'm having a lot of fun talking to you guys. I wasn't expecting to make tons of progress on this anyways. It's, just drawing together a little bit here and there. And no, I'm happy you asked. It's a good question. And I've actually grappled with this question a lot, where I feel like I've learned a lot about how to make money off art. I've learned a lot about what it takes, like what business models work and this and these different things. But the reason why I've decided to teach beginners specifically is because what I could have done is I could have made courses on how to make money off your art practice and just made my entire YouTube channel about making money off the art. And that would be it would be easier for me to make money off that as a course. Because as soon as you can offer income, you can charge more for courses, right? So a lot of people who teach professionals, they can charge way more for their courses because people feel like they're investing in themselves. Well, if you teach hobbyists, you can't charge as much. But the reason why I chose not to do that is because I think there's also a tremendous amount of luck involved, and money gets complicated. And there's so many personal aspects to that I feel a little bit like I'm not sure how much of that I want to talk about, because I'm not fully sure how much of that really is skill and how much of that is luck. Falling in love with your art practice, enjoying the practice, being a beginner artist, these are things I feel very safe talking about, because it's not as like telling someone to fall in love with their art practice. If they tried and fail, it's completely fine. It doesn't really impact their life that much. It matters, but it doesn't matter as much as if I told someone, here's the way for you to make money, and someone invested $1,000 into a business and they lost $1,000, and then that was their emergency savings. That is way scarier to me. So that is why I chose not to talk about the topic, but I'll consider talking a little bit more about that. But some things to consider is profit margin and what does a business model look like. And when you take advice from people, really also pay attention to what marketing they do and those kinds of things. Yeah, that's what I'll say about that. But thank you for the question. I'm happy you asked. It's relatable, Christine, to me. Yeah, I know there are a lot of people who want to make money off their art. I totally understand the appeal. I make my money off being an art teacher. I have made money off my art as well. I've sold original pieces. I've sold enamel pins, right? So I did this. Yeah, I'll show you guys. I did this Kickstarter for these enamel pins. Oh, look at that. I did a Kickstarter for these pins that I made an amount of money, a real amount of money. But I also limited amount of marketing that I did for it as soon as it hit a certain amount of money, because I wanted to see if I actually enjoyed running that kind of business. And what I discovered was that I don't really care that much for being someone who ships out product all the time. But that might change again. But I just decided that honestly, I care more about education than anything else. So yeah, I think I'm actually going to call it a day here. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I actually have to go get ready, and I have plans that I need to be at. I actually thought I was only going to be here for an hour, and I was going to yap to myself this entire time, but I'm so happy that you guys hung out and spend time with me. I really appreciate it. If you are a beginner artist, make sure to check out the 54 free drawing exercises that are linked below. And whenever you guys are ready and you feel like I'm the right teacher for you, check out the Absolutely Everything bundle. The course that I would recommend for everyone is the Inner Artist course, because that is we start off grappling with perfectionism, then we talk about joy of drawing, and then we try to build a project together, like a mini project. And that is what I feel the most passionate about. It's what I think most artists, even if you're a beginner artist, is something that you grapple with. It's what kind of themes do you want to dabble in? What are you inspired by? These are things that I think are very, very valuable. So if you are interested in that, check out the link below. But also, no pressure. You don't need my help. So be very clear. I believe in what I make, but also consume my videos, see if I'm the right teacher for you, and then use it whenever it feels right for you. And so yeah, thank you guys so much. I appreciate y'all. Not sure if someone asked you this before, what are your favorite works of art? Anything particular you saw growing up that just made you say, wow, I need to make that. So childhood inspirations, I saw a lot of fairy tale books, a lot of kind of Arthur Rackham looking pieces. So that I kind of answered that a little bit before. I think I was more inspired just by nature. So less about drawings and more inspired by just living life, basically. If you've been asked the thought of illustrating kids' stories, kids' stories, I've thought about it, but it's not the business model that I want to pursue. I want to be a teacher. So I want to run my own project. I want to work on what I'm working on here. and then be a teacher. And I think that's what I want to do ultimately. So yeah, it's fun watching you draw. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for spending your time. I really, really appreciate it. I love it. This is so much more fun than I can really express in words. It's really fulfilling to be in touch with other artists. I think is what's so beautiful about the internet. So thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys in the next video. I actually had to walk over there and turn it off. So see you guys around, and bye. I almost tripped.